All right, so we're going to be looking into how to find the area of different shapes. This is a formula sheet that should be at the top of your worksheet. I don't expect you to memorize this. I'd rather you be able to apply it in real life scenarios and always keep this on you because in the real world, with the internet, frankly, these equations are always on you. That's different though in some exams. So let's take that into the area of this rectangle. We know it's a rectangle because the length is different from the height, or the base is different from the height. This is a very simple area question that you should be able to answer quite quickly, which is 4 times 3, right? The base times the height, right? And that gives us 12, right? Because 4 times 3 is 12. So that's a nice little introduction there. What is the base length of the rectangle below if the total area is 20 units? This is a good time to pause the video, try to see if you can answer this. Now, in questions like this, especially when you get stuck, it's always just good to write the formula. Area equals base times height. That regards to both squares and rectangles. All right, so base times height. I'm going to fix that B. And let's fill in what we do know. We do know that the area A is represented by 20. And we happen to see that the height is 4. We just don't know what the base is. And what we see, its base, whatever that is, times 4 needs to give us 20. So let's think opposite functions. These two are multiplied by each other. So in order to get to the other side, we just divide by 4. These two will cancel out. Divide by 4. And you ultimately will end up with B equaling 5, which tells us that this base here, either the top or bottom, is 5 units. 5. All right, great job. Same thing for 3. Go ahead and pause if you don't know, if you want to give it a shot for yourself. This one's a little bit more, you have to think about it. It's more abstract. And so it's telling us what is both the base and the height. We don't know either of these numbers, but we do know that the area of this square is 9. What's important to understand about a square is, once again, we're stuck. So let's think area equals base times height. Well, what is it? Base times height. What times what is going to give you 9? Well, technically, you can get 9 and 1. You can do 3 and 3. But we also remember that this is a square. And what's fundamentally important about this square is that all 4 sides have the same exact measurement. So whatever the base is, it must be the same number as the height. So what number times itself, or squared, is going to give you the area of this square, hence the term. So the only number that makes sense that gives us that is 3 times 3. The height must equal 3, therefore the base must also be 3, which makes sense because 3 times 3 is 9 units. Area, so if you were to write this out from scratch, what you would see is that 9 equals base times height, but we see that it's the same number. So we can actually just say that 9 equals some unknown number squared, and therefore if you take the square root of both sides, you'll see that x equals 3. All right. And now we go into the last stretch here. We go into the area of a triangle. In the Word document here at the top of your worksheet, you'll see the height is anything that forms a 90-degree angle when drawn with the base. So this height here is dotted, and you see it forms a perfect 90-degree angle with the base. So that tells us it has to be the height. In triangles, these are the trickiest things to figure out. Once you get that, it's pretty simple. And here, what we see is that the base. All right, I'll try and highlight color coord. That's not going to work out. But we see that the base here, right, is there at the bottom. When we think of base, it's easy to think of the bottom. But what's forming a 90-degree angle with this? There's 2 things hitting the base. You have the hypotenuse here, and then you have what has to be then now the height here. This has to be the height because it's forming a 90-degree angle with the base. There we are. I'm going to make this. Let's see if this helps. I'm going to change the the thickness here. Yeah, that helps. All right, so that tells us that this must be our height and that this bottom term here must be our base. What's the area of this triangle? Well, in this case, the formula of the triangle's area equals base times height divided by 2. Some people also describe it as area equals 1/2 times base times height. Whichever floats your boat, it's all good. I prefer this one myself. So we see that area equals 7 times 4 over 2. And what we'll see is 7 times 4. That gives us 28 over 2, which ultimately is going to give us 14. and that's what our area equals. 14 is the area. And then finally, we get into number 5. This is kind of a tricky question. Diameter of the circle is 6 inches. If 3.14 equals pi, what is the area? Well, let's think about what is the formula first of a circle. Area equals pi multiplied by the radius squared. Well, this is where it gets tricky. I didn't give you radius here. I gave you the diameter. So what that means is that area is going to equal pi gets replaced by 3.14, and the radius, which is half of the diameter, is actually going to be 3. And then that you have to have squared. Let me just stay. Technically I should have written this like this. There you are. So now we can just go ahead and work through this. This ultimately becomes 3.14 times 9. And then if we take out our calculator, we'll see that 3.14 times 9 gives us 28.26 is going to be our area of this circle.